Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I would like to call to order the meeting of the Pender County Planning Board for June the 7th, 2022. First item is a roll call. Mr. Jordan, present. Mr. Buchanan,
Present.
Mr. Bodwin, Mr. Pitts, present. Mr. Teachy, Mr. Grunfest, and Ms. Mosca.
Present.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Planning Board meeting for Pender County. We serve as an appointed board by the County Commissioners to make recommendations and decisions concerning specific land use applications. We have 5 cases tonight on the agenda to be heard. Before we begin, it is
We got you.
okay. Okay. All right, I'll repeat. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Planning Board meeting for Pender County. We serve as an appointed board by the County Commissioners to make recommendations and decisions concerning specific land use applications. We have 5 cases tonight on the agenda to be heard. Before we begin, it is important for everyone to understand some facts related to this meeting. There is an imposed time limitation for all public hearing comments, which is limited to 2 minutes individually or 5 minutes if you are representing a group. Applicants and or their representatives are excluded from any time limitation so that they may have adequate time to present their requests. The county attorney will keep time for each comment. Comments should be limited to only those issues concerning whether the rezoning, text amendment, or master plan application should be recommended favorably or unfavorably. Cases that are heard by this board are guided through the adopted comprehensive plan and the Unified Development Ordinance. The purpose of the hearing is to gather information so that we can make a decision that is fair to the applicant, the neighbors, and the community, and respects the procedures and standards established in the Unified Development Ordinance and the statutes of North Carolina. Certain mutually agreed upon conditions may be imposed on a master development plan and conditional rezonings to offset or mitigate any potential impacts a specific proposed use may have. Before we get started, are there any board members who stand to directly benefit financially from any decision that is made tonight? No. If not, we will continue with the public hearings. All right. Let us please stand for a brief invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. May we bow our heads. Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, we come before you this evening with humbled hearts and open minds, asking you that you will give us wisdom so that we might make decisions that will be pleasing to the current and future residents of Pender County. We ask this in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. I entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Moving right along, I'm entertaining a motion to adopt the minutes from the previous meeting. That would be the April meeting. April 5th, Mr. Chairman.
I'll make that motion to adopt the
April
minutes from April 5th.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nope. Okay. All right. Mr. Attorney, did anybody sign up for public comment?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Ed Hirsch.
So, Ed Hirsch, 126 Soundview Drive, Hempstead. Not sure if that's required or not. But don't have a lot to say other than any zoning requests that add to more people, more traffic, more congestion should be denied, flat out. We're already one of the highest taxed counties in the state, if not the highest. And you're all letting growth get out of hand. There's going to be new bonds. There's going to be increased taxes. You're going to drive all the locals out of their homes. They've been there for years and years. People are coming here like crazy. It's got to stop. You can't go a day without an accident on 17. People don't respect this area. The newcomers don't respect this area. It's up to you to stop it. And what's the purpose? More money? Is that the means to the end here? Do we want to recreate Wilmington here? What is it that we want? What is it these people want? We're the community. You represent us. You advise the county commissioners. You got to stop it. You're going to have increased taxes, increased bonds. Nobody that exists here, that's been here, that built this, will be here because they won't be able to afford to stay. You'll change the culture. It's up to you to stop it. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jimmy Tate. I should say Dr. Tate.
Good evening. I come to introduce myself to you all. I am your newly elect in a couple months commissioner, and so I did get an invitation from several of your community members to be here tonight. So I certainly want to come hear the community's concern. I'm part of this community, and I'm very much value your input and value your opinions, and I'd love to see the public engaged in their community. That means a lot to me to see you all here tonight. So let's give yourselves a big round of applause, please. Come on, thank you for being here this evening. And rather did you vote or not for me, I just asked you to give me an opportunity to have an opportunity to work with you and hear your concerns. And again, I'm not in office now, so it's not a whole lot I can do, but I certainly can listen to your concerns that you have and take those and move forward accordingly. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you.
Those are all to sign up for that open public comment, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Attorney. All right. Well, let us move forward to the agenda. I believe Mr. Hanley has the,
Mr. Henley, our planning board director, is in a quarantine at the moment, but he's on the phone with us, so be patient as we try to get him so that everyone can hear him as he presents his next case. Okay, Travis.
All right. Thank you, Chairman, members of the board. Good evening. I apologize to the board, to the members of the public that I'm unable to be there, but given the way I'm feeling right now, you probably don't want me there in person. I'll do the best I can to speak loudly and clearly. I will be honest, my voice is fading with the symptoms I have right now, so I'll do my best, but if you need me to speak up, just let me know. Our first case tonight is a continuation of a case that was first heard at the April 5th, 2022 meeting, MDP-R 2022-38. Signature Topsoil NC applicant and owner, and also on behalf of the Ruth Kalmar estate. Additional owner is a revision to the previously approved master development plan for the mixed-use development known as Windwater. Specifically, the request is to modify the existing plan to allow for townhomes in phases 7 and 11, increase the area within both of those phases, and to remove the area designated as phase 10 from the plan entirely. The master development plan is proposed to reduce in size by approximately 29 acres down to 206 from the previously approved 235, with the total number of units approved for the master development plan remaining consistent with previous approvals. The property is located to the east of US Highway 17. Phases 7 and 11 are located to the north of Champion Drive and to the south of Topsail Greens Drive, essentially straddling Topsail Plantation Drive, while phase 10 was located east of Sloop Point Loop Road, across the street from the intersection with Craftsman Way on the other side of the Windwater project. As shown in the minutes from the April 5th meeting that the board just approved, a motion to table the item was made at the end of that hearing, with specific direction to the applicant to highlight the buffers on the map with additional visual representations for the buffer types that will be utilized to add clarity. It was also requested a clarification on the existing utility lines and how the proposal will not impact those areas, and then a survey of the existing utilities to better address the concerns of the community. There were also mentioned concerns at the end of the meeting just regarding the density itself, as well as that motion was made and seconded and unanimously carried, and it was tabled to the next meeting, and that meeting was specifically moved to Hampstead, which brings us to where we are tonight. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that the board may have, but otherwise the proposal has not changed. And at this point, if there are no questions, I will turn it over to the applicant.
No questions. Will the applicant please come forward?
Mike Pollock, 6450 Shenwood Drive in Wilmington. We address, I think, the first drawing you'll see is a color-coded representation of the buffers. There's 3 different buffers that are noted here along 17 and Plantation Drive. The ordinance requires an A-type buffer, which is denoted there. The perimeter of the project right adjacent to the commercial on the larger part of the commercial, we're showing a C1 buffer, if I'm not mistaken, which is a fence. The rest of the project in green shows another option in the ordinance, which is it's more of a landscape fence as opposed to a wooden fence, where it calls out for specific landscape materials, separation. I mean, it's very definitive in the code what that is. So that shows, denotes to you that we have more than enough room to provide that buffer, and we're still going to have quite a bit of soft and open space in the project. If we can go to the next slide. The next slide, going back to the concern about existing utilities on the property, we were always very aware of what's out there and what's been there for forever. And I've worked with the Topsail Greens community for many years in addressing many different issues. So after the meeting was tabled, I met one of the representatives from the HOA, the board, I'm sorry, not the HOA, the board, and I wanted her to show me everything that she was concerned about and aware of. I want to make sure there wasn't anything I wasn't aware of, and there wasn't. Everything that we looked at the water line up in the bottom left-hand corner is an easement that is there. Their water line goes along the property line of that property. We looked at it and concurred that yes, that's there and we're aware of it. The other green line that goes through are the 3 sewer force main lines, and we've always been aware of them. They're drawn on plans and on a recorded map, and we have always had complete understanding of what's there, and we'll be respecting those easements. And as you can see how the engineer has laid it out, that he did it with that in mind. I'm trying to think, there was one other question about, maybe there's a question as to why we're taking section 10 out of the project. Well, that property we no longer own. That property was traded to a trust for what is now section 5 of Windwater. And we needed section 5 to give us the second entrance to Sloop Point Road. It was always part of the plan, but without boring you with details, there was an agreement, there was 2 deaths and trustees, and the only way we actually got to get that phase 5 property is to trade the other property, which is now going to be and is being combined with another tract that is waterfront property on the intercoastal that will most likely in the years to come be developed with an entrance running through that property. But we don't own that property anymore, and that's the only, that's why we're asking you to take that out. If there's any questions from the board, I think I've addressed what was asked.
I have some issues or some questions about stormwater management.
Okay, my engineer, Gary Pate, would be happy to address any questions.
So do you have proposed final elevations? I'm concerned with the current elevation difference between what you're going to develop and what's Topsail Greens right now. There's already a water issue. I pulled up on the GIS map. We've got a significant area that
No,
has...
not at this stage of the,
So there will be, though, a certain amount of fill brought in. You're going to have to raise the areas.
well, yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to replot, or, do the work based on the stormwater regulations and the floodplain regulations that exist for that area. So whether that means fill, possibly. At this point, I don't know. We haven't done final engineering plans yet on that,
Okay.
so.
So we don't know what's going to happen with the runoff. You don't have...
Well, we have an idea of what we're gonna do. We've walked the route where we would pick it up from the Phase 11 property, and then it runs down a existing ditch system out past Cardinal. So we've looked at that route, and once we figure out what all is going through there, then we can figure out what needs to be improved to make sure all that drainage goes. And the way we plan to try to do it is to have the drainage go through there, but make improvements to that area so that the existing properties nearby that are having drainage problems now, their water will be able to go into that ditch system or pipe system or whatever it is and help alleviate some of their problems as well.
Gary, explain to them the survey work we did, the importance of the outfalls
Need to speak into the mic.
You can tell. I'm sorry. And, you know, I think what, the thing is, that at this moment, we wouldn't have it all designed. But what we've done is we met with the board of the Topsail community, and we spent quite a bit of time, effort, and money, and very thoroughly evaluated the outfalls that are there, because that's what you got. Mother Nature gives you drainage, and then you do with it. Unfortunately, when their community was developed, there was no stormwater. There were no rules, basically. Or if they were, they were different than today. Today, they're much more rigorous and what have you. But what we have done is worked with our surveyors, and we have all the topography of the drainage, and we're very comfortable that we can make this work. And I'm not speaking as an engineer, but my engineer and the surveyors have that data.
Well, my concern as an engineer is that you're going to have
Yeah, you can.
a difference in elevation. You're going to have to put in fill. You're going to have to meet whatever freeboard, the elevation difference. You already have a situation where you have a saturated area, and you're not going to be able to control 100% of the runoff.
No, we will design, well, I'm not gonna, let my engineer speak to that.
Well, in just general engineering practice, it's not our, intent to increase the property and push our water onto other properties.
Understood.
We will provide ditches and other storm devices to pick up the water around the property and take it to the outfall system that we're gonna be trying to put into, that's lower than everything else, and get the water off that way.
Right, so the outfall system works on absorption and evaporation.
Well, and runoff.
Right, the
it
retention
runs off.
ponds. What's going to happen?
No, the outfall system, the ditch system that we're
Right.
gonna be improving and fixing, because along the route, there is an existing ditch there, it's just kind of small, and there's obstacles and there's broken pipes and stuff along the way that we're gonna fix all that and try to get the water that runs through there a lot more smoother.
Where's the water running to is my question.
Eventually, it goes to a huge culvert that goes underneath Cardinal, and then it goes out through the neighboring communities, and finally gets out to Mullet Creek.
Is this on your plans that we can look at? Is that included in the
No,
plans?
no, I don't have a
So
plan.
the concern with the area being already saturated is very flat, and there's no details to show how you're going to manage the system, especially if you, again, are you building up, it is low density, but you're gonna have impervious surfaces now, so you're gonna have more issues. You're drawing the water to those areas. You do have septic fields back in between two of your proposed retention ponds. My concern is not meeting the stormwater design standards.
Well, we
requirements.
will meet the stormwater design standards when that is the appropriate time to do that. We're right now in the master plan stage, which is more of a schematic type design than it is an engineered full design. So
Right, I understand.
when we get to preliminary plat phase for each of these different sections, at that point in time, we will have the engineered drawings that will be submitted to all the regulatory agencies to address those concerns.
Travis, are you there?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to address this to Travis, but obviously to the applicant as well. But in our ordinance in the stormwater management, is it not required that all details of stormwater collection, retention, discharge systems shall be included on the plans, including pipe sizes, locations of all structures and devices, all proposed inverts and grades, and other typical details required to construct the system? Calculations and specifications are not required to be submitted. Where does that fall in this process?
Typically, it would fall into the actual engineered drawing section, which, while a master development plan, certainly one of this size, would also be engineered. Really, where we're looking at the stormwater standards specifically would come at what's called a preliminary plat or a major site, which is the next step in the process following master plan approval. But that said, I mean, the standards of a master development plan also ask for information with regard to stormwater facilities designed to serve a project.
I just feel like we don't have enough information. This is too vague of a design. I understand schematics, I understand 30% drawings, I understand that. But there is no, you're gonna figure it out later, is what I'm understanding from what you're saying. But there needs to be something to show what's going to be in place to help protect. If you go to the GIS map, again, you've got that whole area in the front is subject to water. And then you're gonna build on it more impervious surface. Yes, you're gonna create your swales, your outfalls, and then you're gonna have retention ponds retaining water. It's designed to retain water, which is going to saturate the area. You're in a flat area. This whole side of 17 is flat. There is nowhere to drain to. So there's concerns that, at least for me, looking at it, that you're going to have stormwater issues. I don't know, according to the stormwater section 7.9, design standards, all projects shall be designed so that the post-development runoff from the project be no more than 10% more than the pre-development runoff. And we have nothing to go on.
I think what's important to understand is that nothing gets permitted if it doesn't meet the criteria and the codes and the stormwater criteria. So that's where this flushes out.
I understand meeting codes. I'm an engineer. I understand design. I understand that on paper everything looks great when you tell me it's going to work, but reasoning it out and looking, right now you're telling me we're going to get to that. And we don't have enough information. What are you building? How high, what are your proposed finished elevations? Give us, you have less than a 30%. You just have a schematic design. So there's concerns that, yes, you're going to handle the runoff, you believe, from what you develop, but you don't have.
Please.
How is the impact on the surrounding areas? Again, you're going to have detention ponds that are meant to retain water. You're in a saturated area. You're in a flat beachside area. Where is it running to? It's not running to anywhere. It's going to run mostly into those retention ponds and
Well,
sit.
that's what's not accurate. There is very adequate outfall that's been surveyed, determined, and unfortunately some of the good outfall has not been maintained, and we're going to do many years of maintenance that should have been done. And on top of that, we're getting rid of things that restrict water from getting out of there now. So yeah, we've looked at all that, but we don't see that as beyond that at this moment in time. We feel 100% confident that we can meet all the stormwater criteria and that we can design this project just as we have the rest of wind water that has survived a hurricane and many years. I mean, this is the same engineer that has designed every single part of wind water. So-
Right, excuse me, please. Right, but however, you have two existing communities that were built long before stormwater management plans were ever required. And they are residents have been here a long time, established here. Yes, you've done a nice project here, but this townhouse community is putting this impervious footprint right up on back behind them, where they have septic tanks and these easements and so forth. So the question that I'm hearing from her, and one of my major concern is, okay, yes, you can design these things, but you're right up on there, and we know runoff exists, and these are septic systems that are very old. Is it possible, from our community standpoint, you're going to have runoff that could possibly make these septic systems not perk in the future and cause some problems? So can you help us understand what you're gonna do or can commit to say, okay, this is why, what we can do above and beyond to create those ditches. They're not on here. I think it would help us to understand exactly where you're gonna be putting those along these buffers. You have your vegetation buffer. Is there a ditch there or a swell? I don't even know where this ditch goes because I can't see it on the map to help us understand, okay, this gives us a sense of confidence that this is going to be accurate.
Can we bring up the GIS?
Can you address that based on what you
Oh, okay.
said?
Bear with us 1 minute, please.
Can you go under environmental on the left-hand side? Off. And under environmental, go to flood zones. Thank you.
We good? Put the topography one on.
If you want to hit some of the environmental, the flood panels,
That's the future that's the future maps, correct? Preliminary future, okay. That's the ones we need to go off of.
you can do any of the environmental that relate to flood.
Those are the plans right there. Those maps are the preliminary FEMA maps that have not been adopted yet on this portion of the county.
If you want to do hydrography with the wetlands,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, yeah. So basically, with the flood zones and the wetlands, that whole area is saturated. So you're going to be moving water from one end of a property, theoretically, to another area of the property, and it's just going to shift back. The whole area is waterlogged. And so there's a concern, we need to know more about how you're going to manage that water. And it's not just the initial movement of it from point A to point B, which again, with retention ponds, it just sits and it seeps back into the ground. And that area is already saturated. And then you're going to raise, if you're going to have gravity sewer, you're going to raise your whole development with the townhouses and recontour everything. And I don't see how you're going to manage it, moving it from one spot to another. The whole area is saturated.
Right.
Can you explain how, in more specific detail if possible, what you're going to do to prevent the potential runoff for these communities that are the fingers into your proposed project?
So, I mean, we've looked at this thing, so, I mean, it's hard to see on there, but there's some areas where there's some wetlands, so out of those wetland areas, we preliminarily looked at putting down ditches around both sides of the project on the outside to catch any outstanding water that might flow through into the site at the present time.
How
And those-
big of, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And those ditches will come around and kind of tie in down there kind of at the end where it gets really skinny on the top part, the top property there, where it gets really skinny there towards, on the far right. So the pond will be right in front of that, and those two ditches will come around that pond and kind of tie right into that point there, and that's where the outfall for the pond's gonna be. And then we're gonna build a ditch system or pipe system that's gonna come through that area and then up to Topsail Plantation Drive. Right now, there's a 36-inch pipe or some sort underneath that there. And then it goes through there and then through the Phase 7 piece and then through that other big open area that goes all the way down to Cardinal. And across the Phase 7 piece, I think there's an existing 18-inch pipe that's like half crushed from years of neglect. So, I mean, obviously, we'd fix that. We'd probably open that up, just make that an open ditch through there. And then, you know, we still have to do a little more studying, but then the rest of that's, there's already a ditch there that, I mean, it's a fairly decent-sized ditch, but, you know, we think we can improve it a little bit by maybe making it a little bit wider or maybe making it a little bit steeper to kind of carry some of that water a little bit better.
These ditches that you're talking about, they're going to be flanking these neighborhoods, okay? Most of these people here live in these communities. Are they going to be inside your landscape buffer?
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's some of the concerns where that water's going to be pushed to or off, you know.
I think there's two things we're concerned about. There's getting rid of the water in, say, in a big storm where there's gotta be outfall. There's clearly outfall. But there's also clearly to your concern about the water that's there. We won't put all that water in the pond. We're only gonna put the water, and I don't wanna speak as an engineer, but we're only putting and from my understanding, we're only putting the water in the pond we're digging that comes from what we're not in, that we're covering up, that whatever am I correct, Gary, you're gonna, and then other water through design will help get out that doesn't get out now.
Where is it going to go, though?
Pardon?
You keep saying that the water is gonna get out. Where is it going?
Please.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I mean, it goes through what I just said. It goes through that Phase 7 piece and through that big white area down there that's open between, well, I can't read those, whatever they are, but, and then across, there's a 48-inch, 56-inch culvert that goes underneath Champion, and then it goes out into the
Where does it go out into?
wetlands. It goes down to the wetlands there and it comes back into a pipe that we have that goes into our Phase 3 pond that goes underneath Aurora Drive, where we put in, 3 48-inch storm pipes to take it from there, and then it goes out to Mullen Creek.
Good.
are there any more questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Art?
Mr. Attorney?
Mr. Chairman, Art, I remind of the time limits, that we have quite a few to work through.
Yes.
If you come up to speak this evening, I will give you a signal when you use 1 minute of your time, and then 30 seconds, and then when your 2 minutes is up, I will let you know. If you're speaking on behalf of a group, you have 5. Also, as we go through the evening, it may be that the points you came to be sure that were heard by the board have already been made. If you can, then in that circumstance, you can just say it's been covered and then move on, because we want everybody to be heard, and we do have 5 items tonight, so it's going to be a a hustle to try to get them all in. And also, if I mispronounce your name, let me apologize in advance. Al Burfield.
Also, when you come forward, if you would, state your address, your name, and please spell your name. And after that, your time will start.
Good evening, board members and representatives from Windwater. My name is Al Burfield. I live at 353 Topsail Plantation Drive. And that said, that's what you needed? Okay. I have 3 concerns that are kind of a repeat from the last meeting. One of them has been semi-addressed here, but at least the word hasn't been used, and that's called conceptual. And everything I'm hearing is a conception of what they're trying to do here. There's not a firm plan. We don't know, and you're being asked as a board to make a decision that once it's made, 5 or 10 years from now, if things don't work out, who has the responsibility? Is it the Pender County Board, or is it the county? The developer's going to be long gone. Second thing I had on my list was, has the state come back with any determination about the traffic issues in Topsail Greens Drive? That hasn't been addressed tonight, and it was my understanding last time that it would be. And lastly, the ownership of Topsail Plantation Drive. They own the road as it is right now. That has not been addressed either which way. So those are the 3 things that I have in my concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lindsay Oliver.
Hi, my name is Lindsay. I live at 212 Spar Court. I actually had a paper of things to say, but what I heard has me concerned significantly more. Aurora Place, Cardinal Drive, this conceptual runoff has absolutely nothing to do with where I live. I live very close to Highway 17. One of those small retention ponds is right in my backyard, and the other one is maybe 50 paces away, right behind that. Those 2 retention ponds kept my home from flooding during Hurricane Florence. If it were not for those retention ponds, our home would have been flooded out. And I am very concerned. I also wanted to mention today the concern for the wildlife back there. Not that anyone cares, but there is a humongous population of turtles. There are actually some baby mallard ducks back there and some baby geese that I care very much for. And I want to know, does anyone care what's going to happen to them? Does anyone care what's going to happen to me and my family, my young daughter sitting right there when we have another Hurricane Florence? And we're standing on our roof waving for help because no one cared, and all I hear is concepts. I don't want to hear concepts. I don't care about concepts. I want to know what's going to happen in ditches. Little ditches aren't going to cover the massive retention ponds that are back there. Hurricane Florence, the water was right at the tip of the back of my house. I am so grateful for them. And I really appreciate the concerns that you have brought up tonight. I don't know how much time I have left, but I care about the traffic as well. We do not need more homes, more stores, or more places to park. We need more trees, more biodiversity, and more preservation. Recent plans call to drown out any of that which this poor place has left. The recent 2022 IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report, shows that, and I quote, any further delay in concerted...
Ma'am, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Becky Manis.
I have some updated SWOT maps that I gave you guys last month, or the last one.
Hello, my name is Becky Manus. I am a resident and the HOA Vice President of Topsail Greens Community, and I'm speaking on behalf of the board. I'm actually the representative that walked the fairway with Mr. Pollock. I've just given you those maps. They're very similar to the ones that I had given you last month. Just a brief recap. Mr. Pollock also mentioned about the water line that we have that runs down 17. And you already know about the sewer lines that cross Topsail Plantation Drive. When Topsail Greens was built, that fairway was the perfect place for those sewer lines. There was never going to be any heavy equipment on them. There wasn't going to be any trees growing near them. There was never going to be any damage to them. Since Topsail Greens community existed, there's never been a problem with our sewer lines. And I'd like to remind you guys, there's 214 homes and 20 to 35,000 gallons of sewer water that goes through our wastewater plant a day. So we have to have access to those water sewer lines at all time. We also have the repair field. And on slide 18, Mr. Pollock was showing our lines, and there we go. So I know that there has been no attempt to specifically locate these lines. This is the pretty picture I'm aware of, but none of this has been surveyed. And as I look at this plan, I don't see a plan where at least the bottom right-hand portion of this community could be developed without crossing over those lines. There's no guarantee in the future that whoever the builder or the resident is going to maintain and respect our sewer lines there. So as a board member and as the board of Topsail Greens, we do have due diligence that we have to protect the infrastructure of our community, and we're asking you guys to help us and deny this building. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker, first name is Joy. I cannot make out what the last name is on Easton Court.
Joyce Dees, 400 Ensign Court, Hampstead, Topsail Greens. First, thank you for hearing my points. Has development taken into consideration that building numbers of condos will add tremendous traffic to I-17? There are accidents every single day on Hampstead I-17. When 350 homes were built by Windwater, there was no consideration what the traffic would add to driving on, crossing to, and turning on I-17. Since then, the latest building of houses has increased by 7 cars traveling on Topsail Greens Drive every 5 minutes. Building condos will only add to increase harm. When written to the state, their only response was, "We're out of money, and we are building a new bypass." In the meantime, when will the bypass be finished? So the state doesn't care either. I wish Pender County would. Does Pender County care about human safety and lives, or care about making money? The proposed development wants to build on wetland. We understand that Topsail Greens is a bird sanctuary. It seems that the sign stating so has been removed. Residents moved to Topsail Greens for the quiet atmosphere and lovely land sites, not to be ruined by ugly condos staring in our faces every day. We have lived now for several years looking at overgrown weeds since Windwater purchased the land, and Windwater didn't give one iota. Is someone getting paid under the table to build here? We need the truth about building. Please address these problems. Thank you.
Amber Young.
Thank you for letting me come. I live at 400 Ensign. I'm representing a group on Dory Court and Ensign. Well, it is a bird sanctuary, Topsail Greens, and a whole golf course. Huh? Amber, A-M-B-E-R, Young, Y-O-U-N-G. Is that good enough? Okay, I'm just really enthusiastic tonight. Anyway, I've been here 11 years. My mom just talked. She's been here about 17, and we've put in a lot of effort here. So we care about our community. I care about the birds. This is a bird sanctuary. The North Carolina state declared it, and that's why we had signs up. Somebody took the sign down. We don't know who, but that was wrong. And I have to tell you that the state bird sanctuaries, the state officials, I looked it up, says when a bird sanctuary has been established, it will be unlawful for any person to hunt, kill, trap, or otherwise take any protected birds within the city limits except pursuant to a permit issued by North Carolina. That's what I have the laws 168, 1608, and 188. And then on the backside it says here 15A, North Carolina, 10B, whatever. It says wildlife taken for depredations. No permit shall be issued to take any endangered or threatened species of wildlife listed under 15A and CAC 101 except alligators by reason of depredations to property. Now it says migratory. There's a lot of migratory birds coming here. Migratory game birds. This is all state of North Carolina regulations. It says migratory birds protect as follows. Federal laws protecting migratory birds, songbirds, woodpeckers, raptors, or waterfowl before any migratory birds may be taken or killed during the closed season. A federal permit must be obtained from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Substantial penalties for violations apply. Please call the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I have all this information. Now, there's 3 preserves out here in this whole area. My proposal is there's been a lot of problems with floods. It's on this Topsail Greens golf course is built on a flood zone. We live in a flood zone. What?
That's your time.
5 minutes? I had 5 minutes. I was representing a group on Dory Court and on Ensign because they couldn't make it. People on Dory Court.
Count that as a group? I mean.
Yeah.
She addressed herself as a group.
Pardon?
She had addressed herself as a group.
So the only I'm almost done. The proposal here is to turn get your money. It was like $2.5 million that they've developed mostly, and they got $1 million to develop. You'll get your money to this developer. Just sell it to the North Carolina state, and they will turn it into a nature preserve. And also, the North Carolina Insurance Department, they have to approve things. Like they won't give you, if you build 300 or whatever condos on this golf course and it gets flooded by a hurricane, they're not going to give you one dime. And they don't want you building on wetlands. This is a North Carolina wetlands, flood zone, and bird sanctuary. Just remember that. If you start to build, these people build, and they find out, they will sue you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen Kuhn. Karen Kuhn.
Hi, my name is Karen Kuhn, K-O-O-N. My name is Karen Kuhn. I live at 214 Spar Court. My last name is spelled K-O-O-N. I will keep this short. A lot of issues have already been covered. Of course, I live in the community, and my issues are water and sewer, easements, drainage, traffic, wetlands. My personal issue is flooding. I also live behind a watershed, retention pond, and when Florence dumped 29 inches of rain, it came to my back porch, and that was with drainage. So if we don't have any drainage, I'm not going to be the only one that's affected. A lot of people will be by flooding. Insurance is going up. People are retired, they're on fixed incomes. And it's emotionally draining to have to go through this every year. Hurricanes, flooding, you know. My main concern right now is, I know buildings are gonna go up, I know things are gonna be built, but I wanna know for a fact that they're gonna do something about it and not just say they're going to. I want it in writing. I want something that they will show that they will do this and they will do it right. And I hope you guys take these issues to heart and make sure they're addressed and the solutions are implemented. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrew Atkinson.
My name is Andrew Atkinson. I live at 108 Admiral Court, Hampstead. I got several things to address here. This guy would have you believe that he made a nice trade. Reason he traded that land? Can't build on it. Then he wants to bring the stuff that he can't build on back there and squeeze them into this front. 208 acres or whatever it is not big enough for his projects. He was talking about medical facilities to help the neighborhood. You squeeze us in like a tin can, we're gonna need some shrinks, not the medical people, right? Also, that retention pond he has in the back, even a light rain fills those up. Just the other night when it rained hard, them things filled up. When it really rains, they're gonna just pour right out of there. So retention ponds, like she said, is not the issue because the ground is wet already. And if you look around this auditorium, you'll see all these old people that live in our neighborhood. They all moved here for their little dream, to live here. They're already squeezing us in the back, and these people want to now squeeze us where we're separated. During this building process, we had people die because this Topsail Greens was like rutted and they wouldn't fix it. And these cement trucks were bamming around. A couple old people died. They're not used to all this stuff, And the other issue is how you getting these people out front with 3/10 of a mile with 3 driveways there and only one person can turn at a time out there. It's ridiculous. I don't know who thought this stuff up or why they're making money like this, but it's just not in our best interest in this county. I mean, are we going to become another Carolina Beach or what here? All we need is one on the island, one major development, and we will be heading that way. We need to stop this, and for a while, at least get the infrastructure together before we try and build other stuff, because it's crazy. 17 is packed up. Rush hour, you've got to stop all the way through town. Everybody knows that. And we just need to cool it a little bit. Don't put the cart before the horse, or the horse is going to, he's going to trip over the cart. Thank you.
Michelle Blunt. Michelle Blunt.
My name is Michelle Blunt, and I am a resident at 110 Admiral Court in Hampstead, Topsail Greens, for 20 years now. I have raised my daughter here, and it has been a wonderful place to do that. I do have some concerns with the master development plan that is being proposed. As we've discussed, the flood issues are definitely a concern. I can tell you, living on Admiral Court, where we have a pond with turtles and other wildlife, birds that make that their home, that pond is just under 2 acres, and they are going to be taking it away. So they could put parking lots for their 68,000 square foot, 3 commercial buildings in front of our community. So that is not a good thing for us, because we're going to get the fence and we're going to get all of the troubled waters and overflow from that as well. In addition, we have the game lands and the Carolina Bays on either side of Pinnacle Ridge, which flows down from the other side of 17. That is also an A flood zone. There's a lot of water coming through there. And I will tell you, Hurricane Florence, we sit a little bit higher and the water goes down from our house, but it was about 25 feet from my house. And on a good rain, all-day rain, where we're getting flash flood of 4 or 6 inches, that entire golf course is covered in water. I have watched it for years. So, with no plans, other than we'll get to it later and we'll let you know, there's too many factors here and too many residents that are being affected. Traffic is another issue, and I will tell you that it is absolutely impossible to pull out of Topsail Greens Drive to make a left, to go 2 miles to take my daughter to school, which takes me 20 minutes in the morning. That's unacceptable, and it is completely irresponsible of the planning board and anybody involved in making this decision to approve this community for the risks and the liabilities that it presents to our community and to the neighboring communities, because you cannot keep jamming houses into small areas along Highway 17 and not expect more deaths. Thank you.
Bob Aberman.
My name is Bob Aberman. I live at 140 Champion Drive. The last name is spelled A-B-E-R-M-A-N. When I was first considering moving to Topsail Greens at the very end of 2012, we were told about Windwater. There was still a golf course here. We were told about Windwater, and we were told that the 2/3 of the golf course was going to be taken, but that the final third would be either 6, if I recall correctly, 6 full-size regulation holes or 9 hole small golf course. I'm not a golfer. That's not my personal concern, but a lot of these people did move here to golf. Be that as it may. So we were told that that was going to be continue to be part of a golf course and in a wild area. Well, that seems to have gone away. Topsail Greens is such a quiet, peaceful, beautiful community. If you walk around Topsail Greens Drive or a Champion Drive and the side streets, people walk. We have pedestrians going by all the time. People in strollers, bicyclists. It's a quiet, peaceful, pretty neighborhood. Please don't ruin it. Thank you.
Harold Balich.
Thank you. My name is Harold Balich. I live at 307 Rudder Court. That's B-A-L-L-I-T-C-H. I asked the gentleman in pink here before the meeting started if there would have been a traffic count at the Topsail Green at the Plantation Drive in 17. I didn't receive an answer on that.
So there was a submitted traffic impact analysis scope for the project that was completed on March 10th of 2022.
I see. What date was that? You said March 10th?
March 10th, yes, sir.
Could you tell me what day of the week that was? Somebody with a Google?
March 10th was a Thursday.
Okay. Okay, we'll go to the second item, and that's turtles. I live at, there's a pond right directly behind my home, and there's turtles there. There's turtles that come out and lay their eggs in the cul-de-sac. And I want to know what the plan is. Are you going to, obviously, from what I see here, you're going to just fill it in. That's the idea. Is that correct? Whoever?
I would defer to the applicant, or the developer here.
We'll get back to it, sir. Continue with your comments. We'll come back to
Well, that's what my comment is about, is I know that Onslow County is a turtle community. I don't know if Pender County is, or if they even give a shit. So.
Karma Godridge.
My name is Karna Godridge, and I have a home at 623 Outrigger, which is off of Champion Drive. A lot of what I had written has been addressed. I was mainly addressing the safety issue, and my question was, how many more fatalities on 17 are you folks willing to take on? Because there will be there. Anyone who tries to exit Topsail Greens or Champion, you take your life in your hands. I invite you to go do it a few times. The other thing I wanted to say is, once again, this developer, because with first plans, we were going to have green areas, we're going to have walk paths, we're going to have. Once again, this developer has come back to seek more. And I think it's time that more ends. I know there are legal things to address, but sometimes what's interpreted as legal isn't right. And that's what I'm asking you people to consider. What is right? And taking out 10 doesn't mean that 7 and 11 get expanded. They were separate issues. And this whole development will change forever what Topsail Greens has been. I've had my home there since 1989. And I know what it was, I know what it became, and I know that if this goes through, what happened with Windwater before didn't affect where our homes are. What is being proposed now affects where our homes are. And it's time that we look to you people, the flooding, the traffic, the 2-story townhouses compared to our humble homes. Please, people, look carefully and consider carefully.
Anthony Whitmore.
Anthony Whitmore, 504 Fathom Court. Last meeting, I raised the concern about the natural barrier from Ensign to Fathom Court off Topsail Green Drive. I requested the board to allow the natural barrier of ponds and wetland area to remain in place. Has any decision been reached, or will a decision be reached and made available to the Topsail Greens residents? The planning board requested applicant to provide what type C barriers would be available to residents to choose from. Has the applicant provided those plans and what type barriers they could choose from? All Topsail Greens wetlands are currently registered with the U.S. Wetlands Registry as a UDP classification. Has the applicant provided an assessment of the wetlands registry to allow for any construction to even occur on those wetlands? The planning board requested in the last meeting for applicant to provide a 100-year flood plan. Has the applicant provided that 100-year flood plan? That's all. Thank you.
I'm having to rely on Google for this one because I cannot make out the name at all. Think it may be Mario Pinero.
Good evening. My name is Mario Pinerio, and I live at 614 Galley Court. I'm going to talk about schools. No one's talking about schools. Every time family moves in with a couple of kids, it costs $10,000 to send those 2 kids to school. And the taxes you're going to get on that condo There's probably 3,000. So we're gonna be right behind the 8 ball. Okay, that's why, it was just 5 years ago, we had to vote a $25 million bond to expand our schools because of all this building coming in. What about the fire department? Does the fire department know 3 stories? Do we have enough equipment to save people on the 3rd floor? I'm concerned about that. Also, the Harpoon Court. And back of that there, they had a pond. They filled it in. And they said they weren't going to do it, but they did it. Because I watched them do it. I live right around the corner. All right? And the other thing is, what about the other ponds that are running dry? And I understand that they're going to fill in a couple of ponds over there and back at Champion, where Harold lives. His pond now is, one of his ponds is now empty. No water, it's all grass. Where is that water going to? If you look out where they're working, it's like a dump over there. I can see it from my sunroom. I think you guys should go over there and see what they're doing. Okay? Have any of you people from the board been down to check, make sure they're doing the things properly? No. That's part of your job. You should go on site and see if they're actually doing what they're supposed to do. And plus, they're driving the big trucks right beside my house on the golf course pad. And they're ruining my drainage. Every time it rains, like the other night, I had almost a foot of water right up to my house. It's ridiculous. I think you should look at that with the fire department, the schools, and about filling in the ponds. Oh yeah, and the traffic. Yeah, traffic. It takes 20 minutes sometimes to get out of the traffic on Champion and the other two.
Thank you. Stephen Wedgeworth.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Steve Wedgeworth. I live at 138 Pebble Beach Drive in Greenway Plantation. I understand the board's responsibilities. I understand how government works, supposedly, and I understand the need for progress and oversight of everything, taking all the points into consideration. My question is to this committee, where is your mission statement? I've been on your website since receiving these notifications, trying to find what your mission is for this community, or in any of the communities in Pender County. So if you could please help inform the citizens in this community and others by making the website more informative. A lot of these plans that were submitted for this project and others, there's very limited information available. I have emailed the email to inquire about additional information, and I've not received a response. I emailed this past Thursday and have had nothing. I shouldn't have to beg for information. It should be provided. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Arthur Mark.
My name's Arthur Mark, 109 Plank Court, Topsail Greens. I was here at the last. I was here at the last meeting over in Burgaw, and my biggest problem was the flooding. And I believe I gave you all plenty of pictures. I didn't bring them this time some more. I can get them. I got plenty of them. Of the flooding, and on Pirates Court and Plank Court, and back on the Topsail Green area, because originally all that property was one owner, and all the natural runoff runs from Topsail Green, from Champion Drive down to the back of our houses and down back and across the culvert that goes into the creek on the other side. And when we get a lot of rain, we get rain. And it's not just the hurricanes. And I don't believe they can handle all that water. Because your retention ponds, I don't know how many inches per hour they use now, but they used to use 1 inch per hour. Well, we get a hell of a lot more than that now. But, so, and you already addressed the flood area, so I just repeating. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can only make out the first name, Kimberly.
Kimberly Zampatella, 115 Navy Court, Hampstead. I just wanted to start off by saying that the proposed loss of the green space and cart path will have a huge impact on a lot of people. Many residents of Topsail Greens and Topsail Plantation walk the cart path or ride their bicycles on the cart path daily. Residents from Windwater come over to our community to utilize our cart path and to fish in our pond, as they have no green space really of their own. My nieces and nephew love to come visit from Georgia and ride their bicycles and scooters on the cart path. I walk my dog along the cart path and fairways every day. I like to take pictures of all the wildlife and the plants and flowers we have in abundance. Speaking of photos, I will show you these. There's a lot of chemicals laying around in the one fairway. There is an open propane tank with no fencing. I'm worried about children, wildlife, the environment. There's a big mess of like plastic, fiberglass looking stuff that's like next to brush that looks like it's about to be burned. So I didn't know if that was cause for concern. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
Paul Lee.
Paul Lee, 115 Navy Court. Everything else has pretty much been said. You got to think about the little day-to-day things. People plant their plants in a specific way for sunrise and sunset. That's all going to change with two-story buildings. You also have to think about light pollution. If you're putting up parking lots, you have to have lighting in order to have sustainable security, which also, you're putting light into people's windows 24 hours a day, whether they want it or not. You know, these are the things that, this is indelible, this is permanent. You know, these are the things that are really going to change the day-to-day as far as getting up in the morning, going to bed at night. On top of the fact, you have people that work overnight that are younger, living in townhomes. You have constant traffic 24 hours a day, just not 9 to 5. You know, young folks have to make a living too. You know, so I mean, you just got to think about the fact that this is not going to be a 9 to 5 process. This is 24/7. Light pollution, noise pollution, traffic pollution, sound pollution. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Ann Bridges.
Good evening, folks, and first of all, thank you very much for coming to our neck of the woods, because I know that we all appreciate it. I'm going to make it brief because I think you all have heard just about every single point that we want to make. My community is here because we're all concerned about what our living situation is going to be. And for the applicant, he said that he has worked with our community. I've been there since 2007. I've never seen him. I've never seen him. I have a board member here who is also contesting what he is proposing. So obviously, we got a problem. When we're talking about traffic, I work in Wilmington. I have to come home to Hampstead. Sometimes it's a 3-hour trip. If there is an accident, forget it. And I'm over by Mayfair. And I leave at 4:30. I got in my house at 7:30 because of an accident. Thank you very much. Windwater was the biggest lie. It was the biggest lie. They were supposed to have a certain amount of homes, certain amount of structure. They say that we have a home shortage. We don't have a home shortage. We have a luxury home community. We don't have affordable home. That's it. I think y'all know where we all stand with it. I stand with my community. Thank you guys for at least considering and being over here. So have a good night.
All right, thank you all. Do we want Mr. Pollock to come back to the podium and address some of these questions that Oh, okay. Well, before we do that, we do have, Mr. Buchanan has looked up our mission statement, and he wants to read it for us.
And it's not, I understand the concern about the website, that there's other communities that may have more advanced and put more money into their websites. But this is on our current county website. The planning and community development, and Travis, if I'm incorrect on this, you correct me, but your name's on this. The mission statement for the Pender County Planning Department and the Planning Board is, let me read it. This is for the department. The mission of the Planning and Community Development Department is to work with the citizens and stakeholders to provide a range of planning and technical service aimed at enhancing the health, safety, and well-being of all citizens and visitors of Pender County.
All right, thank you.
Damien, that is correct. That is mission statement. However, I would also add that the Pender 2.0 comprehensive land use plan, all 300 and some pages of it, is also our mission statement and can be is on the website, or just can be found by Googling Pender 2.0. That comprehensive plan was adopted in August of 2018 after 2+ years of quite rigorous public input.
So what he's saying is the UDO is the ordinances. Those are the rules we all play by, and the rules that we are here to interpret sometimes, but also to make sure are being followed along with our department. Travis, will you also explain what this proposal is? It's a PD development. They're making a proposal. This is an administrative review for us. Can you give a brief overview of that, and as well as different types of decisions that this board does, so that the audience understands what we are actually being asked to look at and do?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Damien. This proposal is a master development plan under the PD zoning district. The properties, the subject properties, all of Windwater, are zoned in a zoning district called PD, or Plan Development, and it essentially requires any development to go through this process. There are certain standards that a master planned community within the PD district must adhere to that are above and beyond what a regular development would be required to do. For example, all planned communities are required to have a mixture of uses, and if they are larger than 100 acres in size, they are required to have a mixture of residential and non-residential uses. General, best planning practice is that a mixture of uses is a good thing in a development project and leads to reductions in traffic above all else. This process, because the property is already zoned PD, this is an administrative process, meaning that what we as staff and what the planning board is charged to review is whether or not the proposal meets the standards of the Unified Development Ordinance as it was adopted at the time the project was submitted. That is as opposed to the other types of projects that the planning board reviews, of which the other 4 on the agenda are all examples of this other type, and those are either rezoning, so actually changing the zoning designation, or a zoning text amendment, which is changing the text of the development code. Those processes are laid out by state statute and are legislative in their function. Essentially, These are, broad level policy changes, really not that different from what the General Assembly or Congress looks at. It's a lot more broad, I guess a lot more macro versus micro, if that makes sense. Also, those legislative processes don't end with the planning board. Regardless of how the planning board votes on a rezoning or a text amendment, their vote is a recommendation, just like staff's review. It's a recommendation, and it ultimately is up to the elected officials, in our case, the Board of Commissioners, to approve or deny those requests.
Can you just go back over the action that can be taken tonight and where that would go so that the audience understands before we move forward?
So the planning board can, they have three options. They can vote to approve the plan, they can vote to approve the plan with modifications, or they can vote to deny the plan. That's straight out of the Unified Development Ordinance. Because this is an administrative approval, the decision made by the planning board is eligible for appeal by any aggrieved party to the Board of Adjustment, which is a separate appointed board here at the county. And they would, if the case were to be appealed, the Board of Adjustment would hear the case. And at that point, it becomes a quasi-judicial process, which functions very similar to a court system in which anybody speaking is required to provide testimony and is required to back that testimony up on either side. So, Mr. Hope, that answers the question. I'm certainly more than willing to go further if you'd like to.
Right. Thank you, Travis.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Pollock, would you like to come forward and address some of the questions that the audience has brought forth before us?
Can you give me a specific question? There was an awful lot said.
We'll come back to the stormwater, but there was questions regarding current ponds. What would happen to those ponds in your conceptual plan and your idea and your vision for your project? I think there's some questions about what would happen to some of the current environmental.
The wetlands, the project back in its beginning had to be completely mapped for wetlands. That was done. That has to be updated every so many years. We have, within the last 12 months, the most current wetlands maps and that are approved by the I guess the Fed, Gary, help me out here, the Corps of Engineers. So we will not be filling any wetlands on the project. We can't.
Okay, do you concern the current ponds there, wetlands?
Should I just respond to anything
Speak to the
up
mic.
here?
We're speaking to us.
The pond up in the front was a man-made pond by the golf course when it was put in. It's not a wetlands. So yes, that will be filled in.
Please, let's have some respect for the applicant. Go ahead.
You know, I could keep us here for a number of hours rebutting a lot of things that were said, but I don't
We'll
want
ask
to
the
do
questions
that.
here. Okay, I want to ask
what
them
are-
to be quiet, to be respectful of the applicant. We'll be asking the questions to the applicant. Allow the applicant to respond, please. Thank you. Any other questions? The height, do you have a proposed idea of what your height would be for your townhomes? 2 stories or 3 stories?
It'll be a 2-story design. It will be a design that really caters to the plans that we are working with the builder will be a 2-story unit. It will be catered more to an empty nester, as we refer to it, a master down. There's a
very large demand for that type of product. It's not typical to what's in Windwater, but the other thing, and when I say that, when we were approved for this PD, this property has always been future development. It's never been anything but that. In every revision to the plan, the last plan revision where we were approved for 72 townhomes and retail, we are now asking for the additional units on the adjacent property. And before this week, there was a trailer that we did not own, and since time we have acquired it, and we have enlarged the commercial property to include that property. So from the time we were approved, we brought on these additional townhomes. But townhomes were approved as a use in this project from the very beginning. But a townhome is usually one of the last things that you introduce in the mix. So.
Do we have any more questions?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Travis?
I'd actually like to make a motion to deny the application based upon the applicant's failure to meet the requirements as detailed in the UDO section 7.9D design standards, subsection E plan submittal requirements.
Thank you.
What were you two, what did you reference? I'm sorry, I missed that.
7.9D subsection E plan submittal requirements, to have all the details of the stormwater collection, retention, and discharge systems, etc. Letter I, or number I, 2 and 3. There's nothing on the plans. There's all, maybe we'll do this or maybe we'll do that, but it doesn't meet what we need to see.
Thank you.
I do have a similar concern regarding demonstrating the ability to protect those two communities, so I will second your motion.
All right, we have a second to deny. We will take a vote. All in favor to deny?
Aye.
Aye. All in favor to accept it? This has been denied. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We still have business to conduct here for Pender County, so if you would like to converse, please move on into the outside of the auditorium.
All right.
Just let me know when you'd like to go ahead.
Please, ladies and gentlemen, for the respect of the Pender County and our board and our business before us.
All right, moving right along. We got item 8.2. Mr. Feldman, are you?
This one's also going to be handled by Travis.
Oh,
This is
Travis.
a zoning text amendment application. Travis, are you still with us and able to hear us?
Oh, I'm still here, Greg. I'm not going anywhere.
All right. Well, folks are kind of filing out now, so.
Okay.
Ready.
If,
I'll go along with
okay.
the slides.
All right. Go right into it. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, our second case tonight is DTA 2022-15. Trask Land Company applicant is requesting approval of a zoning text amendment to the Pender County Unified Development Ordinance. Specifically, the request is to amend section 3.2.1 zoning approval to allow for the issuance of a clearing and grading permit prior to the issuance of final zoning approval. A detailed description of the changes is located in your packet. Essentially, what this text amendment is after is a way to increase the efficiency of the application submittal and review process, while also increasing the efficiency of the development construction process as well. Essentially, what this would do is, as of right now, we can use Windwater as an example. You have a master plan, and that gets approved, and then you start working on a preliminary plat, and then once that preliminary plat, the site plan is approved, and all of the external permits are issued to the applicant and provided as copies to Pender County, then zoning approval is issued, which allows you to start the development process. And then once you're done installing the infrastructure, you can come back for a final plat. And once that is approved, you actually have your lot created and you can pursue the building permits. I'm using single-family subdivision as the example because that's the vast majority of what we do here. Essentially, what this do is it would add a fourth checkpoint to that process between the master plan approval and the preliminary plat approval. And so if you look at the language, essentially what it says is that if planning staff has a site plan that has been shown to meet all the standards of the Unified Development Ordinance, an erosion and control permit has been issued by NCDEQ, and if it's applicable, a significant tree inventory and mitigation plan has been submitted and reviewed and approved by planning staff, then staff could issue a clearing and grading permit to allow for, the clearing of trees and the beginning of the grading of the site. Now, any installation of hardened infrastructure, water pipes, roadways, that sort of thing, would still have to wait until zoning approval is issued. However, this is a way to try to speed up the process a little bit. There's a number of other localities across the region, across the state, across the country, which function this way. We, up to this point, obviously have not. I will also say that Trask Land Company is the applicant on this proposal. However, this language already existed. It was created through the UDO update project that originally started, over 3 years ago. And so this language is staff language, but Trask is just submitting the application to bring it forward at this point, as opposed to waiting until we were able to move the UDO forward in a more comprehensive way. In review of the proposal, we found it to be consistent with the Pender 2.0 comprehensive land use plan, including one policy, that being 5.1.G, which is in your packet, was not found to conflict with anything within Pender 2.0. And for that reason, staff recommends approval of the text amendment as presented. Again, this is staff's language, so we wouldn't have wrote it down 3 years ago if we didn't want it ourselves. So more than happy to answer any questions. I believe the applicant from Trask is in the audience as well. But yeah, that's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks, Travis. I have a question. Layman's terms, what's the process now? Bullet points. And then what's the proposed process?
Oops. No, I got it. So the process now, master plan approval, submittal of preliminary plat, and it goes to TRC. And then after the site plan is found to meet all standards and all external permits are issued, staff issues zoning approval on the preliminary plat, which allows for all development to begin right then. The site cannot be touched until that zoning approval is issued. And then, after all of the horizontal infrastructure is in place, roadways, water pipes, that kind of stuff, then a final plat is applied for and issued, which actually creates the lots and allows for building permits to be pursued. If this text amendment were to be approved, nothing about that process changes except between the master plan approval and the preliminary plat approval, there would be an additional step, an additional checkbox that could be met, which is if the site plan is in line with the UDO, if the tree mitigation plan is in line with the UDO, and an erosion control permit is issued by DEQ, then staff can issue a clearing and grading permit to allow for clearing and grading only on that site.
So you're saying.
And then go ahead.
The clearing and grading is what we're talking about. Right now, they have to wait till the lots are platted and recorded. This is just allowing them to do it prior to those lots to move put the infrastructure in?
They don't have to wait all the way until the lots are platted, but they have to wait until the preliminary plat is approved, which is not just the layout of the site, but it's also every external permit that could be applicable to the project, which includes stormwater, it includes not just a TIA, but a driveway permit, any number of other potential external permits.
So what are the chances of a zoning not being approved? Let's say we get.
Well, that is, I believe I heard you, which was what are the chances of the zoning not being approved? It does happen. It's rare, especially if it got to the point of the site plan itself meeting the standards of the UDO. Typically, projects don't get to that point and then not move forward. But in the case of it, if that were to be the case, then the language of the text amendment would provide that, if say they should they not move forward, the applicant or the property owner is still going to be responsible for executing the tree mitigation requirements of that significant tree survey, which is why we're making that part of the deal here. And so, if I own a piece of property and I've got my clearing and grading permit and I've cleared, 50 significant trees off the site and then never move forward, well, I'm still on the hook to plant the 100 mitigation trees that the ordinance requires me to plant. And if I don't, I'm subject to all of the potential enforcement proceedings that are available to staff under the Unified Development Ordinance, including fines, $100 a day, and potential court-ordered compliance down the line if it gets to that point.
It's a lot of money to spend to fumble it at the end.
Just want to know what the chances are, that's all, what would hold it up or what would change, because you clear a whole land and then you have a clear-cut piece of land that does nothing and you've changed the landscape. So I want to know what the ramifications were for somebody who would clear that and then have an issue with zoning.
Travis, we might want to add language that, it ordinarily does, but make it clear that it runs with the property. Because if they abandon the project at this stage, the LLP or the LLC that was doing it is gone. And they may divide it up into multiple lots and sell it off to people, from that side, again, depending on the project. So it may be we would look to add some language just making clear, because it does say property on them.
Or have them put up a bond.
Well, and I had wondered about that as well. If they want to do it, then,
For the mitigation, for any mitigation, put up a bond.
What are your thoughts? Mr. Director?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, in this particular case, we do have an applicant, so I think their input is relevant as well. But from a staff standpoint, I don't think it would hurt to add that language. I do think that there's other sections of the ordinance that talk about enforcement that cover us there. But I certainly don't think I don't think it changes anything to add something. So I'm on board with adding an additional line.
Travis, do you know what sections offhand cover the,
I'm sorry, I can't quite make out the question.
what if somebody doesn't comply and then you have to go and use the enforcements? Where are the enforcements listed?
I'm sorry, guys. The last piece of it.
The enforcement aspect of the UDO, what section is that?
Article 13.
Article 13.
Would the applicant please come forward and present your case?
Good evening. My name is Gardner Ned with Trash Hunting Company. I'm the hearable advocate. Basically, we agree with everything Travis says. We're just trying to make it to where it's in line with other counties and municipalities, with the goal of being able to get completed the construction quicker. Therefore, we get construction crews out of the sites as quickly as possible.
Does the board have any questions for the applicant?
No, I'm just concerned about the enforcement again, with the LLC dissolves and then you have the legal issues. So to protect.
And the reason about making sure we say it runs with the land is one of the options is, well, you don't get your permit approvals to move forward. Well, if they're abandoning the project, they don't care about any of those approvals. So you don't have that of, you can't get final zoning approval until you do this or have it in, that piece of leverage goes away because the LLC is not even a PO box anymore. So that would be the concern of that it makes it clear that it runs with the land.
I mean, I'm totally fine to make it clear on that point, but you can make the same argument about any standard, including within the UDO. So.
Yes, but I think in this case, if we're now going against the UDO, that we have a surety bond that will follow what is supposed to be put in place and will guarantee that any tree mitigation or anything will take place regardless of whether the LLC dissolves or not.
Do we have any more questions for the applicant?
Not unless he wants to provide any further information.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any sign-ups?
Yes, sir. Andy Wood.
Please state your name and your address.
My name is Andy Wood. I represent Coastal Plain Conservation Group, its board and members. I'm the director. Our address is P.O. Box 1008, Hampstead, North Carolina. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you tonight regarding the Trask Land Company's zoning text amendment. As noted in the request for Pender Planning Board action, the proposed zoning text amendment to the Pender County UDO seeks to increase efficiency in the application submittal and review processes while providing an opportunity to increase the speed of the development process if certain conditions are met. Quoting Pender County's UDO as prescribed in section 3.18.5 of the UDO, in evaluating any proposed ordinance text amendment, The central issue before the planning board and the county commissioners is whether the proposed amendment advances the public health, safety, or welfare, a priori. With all due respect, this amendment will only serve to hasten destruction of living forest and other natural habitats in Pender County, diminish Pender County's natural biodiversity, imperil rare and endangered plants and wildlife, reduce Pender County's ability to mitigate atmospheric CO2, make stormwater management less efficient, and diminish the well-being of ecosystem services that our species requires for its own health, safety, and welfare. In short, this proposed zoning text amendment does not advance public health, safety, or welfare. In its own survey of Pender County residents during development of the Pender 2.0 Comprehensive Land Use Plan, based upon the 1,374 responses to the survey, the majority of respondents believe that avoiding development in sensitive environmental areas and maintaining the area's natural beauty through the preservation of habitat, trees, and scenic vistas are the most important priorities for land use and development in Pender County. The results from this question also indicate that participants do not feel that mixed-use developments such as retail and offices close to residential uses are important priorities. Approving this proposed text amendment might convenience developers, but it ignores the will of Pender County residents who have made clear their hope that sensitive environmental areas and the area's natural beauty will be maintained. Regarding mitigation, and I appreciate you bringing this up, if an LLC does the clearing, they need only dissolve the LLC and walk away, bond or otherwise. This is bankruptcy. On behalf of CPCG's board and members, we respectfully ask this board to deny the zoning text amendment and find the proposal inconsistent with the Pender 2.0 Comprehensive Land Use Plan because, as previously noted, this convenience for developers is not in the public interest. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's all.
That's it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do we have any questions for staff? Travis, I had a question. I was thinking a couple of years ago, we had an item to come before us that was similar to this, and I thought it was for trash land development. Can you shed some light on that, or is my memory bad?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. There's something cut out in the phone. I didn't catch the first part of the question.
Sorry.
Was there a similar application brought forth by Trask, maybe 2 years back?
Not a text amendment, no. Trask has been working on the Lake Farm master plan project, and so maybe that was.
Okay. That's what it was.
Could be related to that.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm again apologize. I'm not there, so I can't, see you all at this point. But at this point, and certainly the applicant's opinion on this is relevant too. But if there's guidance that the planning board would like to provide through a tabling of this request to the next meeting for us to address, I would welcome that. I've got some ideas myself, but certainly any guidance that the board has for us, we would rather you provide that than make a motion to.
I think this is more of a legal issue that needs to be discussed, not necessarily construction related or planning related. This is an item specifically, comes down to the law and yes, the ordinance, but I think we need a discussion on it with the attorney.
And I'll be happy to do so, and that's why I brought it up, because that was, that's a concern, and obviously Mr. Wood and his group shared it. And it's just, as Travis says, something's going really bad if somebody pulls out, once they get to the stage they would be getting this. You know, it's a 2008 kind of, you know, housing bust. So we just need to be sure that it's clear, and again, there would also be concern, quite frankly, that somebody could buy land not realizing that, you know, that, okay, you need to mitigate on your portion too, because all of a sudden it's not a big project anymore. You're doing, you know, 10-acre estate things, and we don't have any control over you, so how do we enforce when I bought the land in all good faith and I didn't know there was a tree mitigation plan?
Right, and putting up a bond or an escrow in the, you know, with the county as a certificate holder or bond holder, I think would remedy that.
Well, and I mean, we, you know, bond or escrow amenities in developments all the time. So, I mean, we could use a similar, you know, approach with that. And we've even got pre-approved forms. If you want to use our pre-approved form, it doesn't have to even get reviewed. You just fill it out and give it to us.
But do we require a bond now if someone has a plan? Do we have a bond that's required now for a project that's approved for trees if they're allocated like that? If they're required to put trees in?
No, because you're not skipping the zoning process. We're concerned with.
So would your bond proposal say that once they've got to that process, their bond's released?
They don't put up a bond. In other words, if you get the zoning approval, this is to protect against them walking away because they get denied on a zoning approval. If they get the zoning approval, they're free to just go ahead with what was approved. So there is no issue with them in a normal situation before this amendment. They would just go ahead. You don't have to be bonded. That's for public works. So they would just go ahead and do the work that they intended and that they were approved on. We're concerned that you get to the last step and they've already done a few of the steps and they're waiting for that final zoning approval and you don't get it. Maybe the company went bankrupt or whatever. Now you're stuck with land, no mitigation. So it's to get that mitigation in case the company went bankrupt.
If you tie it to the land, it would have to be mitigated by somebody at some point
Yes,
without a bond.
yes, but if you don't tie it to the land, you have the monies to go forward with mitigation.
And it could sit clear cut for years.
Well, I'm certainly sympathetic to the applicant's request, but the process and, speeding up their process, try to get something done because it's just sitting and, we're going to get there eventually, but I'm also completely get what you're saying.
Well,
Yeah.
we can be sympathetic and we can make it work by
Right, yeah.
requiring the bond or requiring an escrow, and that's our guarantee that no matter what happens, whether you get the zoning approval or not, if you walk away, we can still have monies to do what we need to do.
Yeah, I agree. Well, let's table it.
It's a safety.
And it's similar to the way we allow a developer to go ahead and start moving ahead with the development and the lot sales by putting up a bond for the amenities. There are places that you've got to have completed all the amenities before you can sell lot one.
Right. Well, let's table it so we can get it
And
right.
we do that as an accommodation and to allow the builder to move ahead more quickly. So since the purpose of this seems to be to allow the development to go faster, then that would be something to look at, is it just so there's a guarantee.
Mr. Buchanan, was that a?
I'll make a motion to table this until the July meeting. Is that enough time for you guys to kind of think this through and get with us?
Yeah.
That's enough time, but I just want to be clear. Again, I apologize I'm not there, so I'm not able to, kind of see you guys and participate in more thorough discussion. But I want to be clear that the situation that's being described can happen today under the current code just the exact same way.
Right. That's what I was trying to think through.
Like,
Well, let's table it.
nothing about this ordinance would add any questionable activity that's any different from what could happen today here or in Brunswick County or anywhere else.
Right.
Okay.
Motion to table it to July's meeting.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor of tabling it to July's meeting? Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. Sir? That meeting will be in Burgaw. Yes, I believe. It's the Commissioners' Chambers. All right.
What date is that? 'Cause it's,
And,
they're on the 4th.
on that, Chairman, just for the members of the board and for everybody there, that language was published on the May meeting that we weren't able to hold. So if the board had thoughts on that case, if they had a chance to read it back then and had thoughts on that case, or going forward, we would have appreciated knowing what those thoughts were back then instead of now, just for the future.
Got it. Thank you. Next on the agenda, 8.3.
Oh, he's walking down, the next meeting will be July 6th, in Burgaw, in the County Commissioners Meeting Room. It got moved around because of the 4th.
Okay. What night of the week is that on? Is that, it's on Wednesday?
I think it's on Wednesday.
Okay.
It's a Wednesday. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, are we ready to move along?
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
So for our third application this evening, we have a general use rezoning request. Ben Burgess, applicant on behalf of B Squared LLC, is requesting the approval of a zoning map amendment to rezone one tract totaling approximately 303 acres of land from the RP Residential Performance Zoning District to the RA Rural Agricultural Zoning District. So as you can see on the zoning map on the screen in front of you and on our presentation here, a majority of the surrounding area is zoned residentially. Of course, as you moved further southeast from the parcel, you start to come up on some commercially zoned property as well as some industrial zoned property. But for the most part, in the immediate vicinity of the subject property, it is zoned residentially in the form of both RP Residential Performance and RA Rural Agricultural. So as you can see from the aerial view now of the property, it's currently a vacant, cleared farmland tract. And I'll note here that because this is a general use rezoning, the site could be developed based upon all of the permitted uses, or by right or by special use permit in the RA Rural Agricultural Zoning District. And the table on the screen is going to provide a general list of some of those land uses that are permitted in the RA zoning district. And that chart on the right is showing you the setbacks associated with that zoning district as well. So now we have the capacity figures provided by they're derived from the Department of Transportation's average annual daily traffic data. And as you can see, Ashton Road at this time does have the capacity to accommodate an increase in traffic. Subject property is located within the rural agriculture, future land use classification within the Pender 2.0 comprehensive land use plan, and as shown on the future land use map. This future land use designation supports and protects Pender County's agricultural areas, and these areas are intended, or are an essential part rather, of the county's economy and agricultural heritage. And the proposed RA Rural Agricultural Zoning District rezoning request was found to be consistent with 4 policies within Pender 2.0, the future land use map, and the allowable uses within the requested zoning district are compatible with the surrounding area, and therefore staff respectfully recommends approval of the zoning map amendment as detailed in this report. Staff is more than happy to answer any questions the board may have for this application. The applicant is also with us this evening and available to answer any questions you have.
Okay. Could you go back to the slide that shows acceptable
Yeah, absolutely.
uses for the, okay, that's it. Thank you. Do we have any questions for staff at this time?
This is a down zoning,
That's correct.
which is usually favorable. Obviously, you're recommending it.
That's correct.
The usual concerns that the community always brings to us are traffic and too many people coming here and straining on our community. So currently in an RP zoning, that would allow more density if a landowner wanted to develop that property. Is that accurate?
Approximately 3 homes an acre. Yes, sir. An RA is 1 home per acre.
So this is less houses if they decided to go that route.
That's correct.
Okay. Which is what we have to think about as the zoning, not what they
Right.
say.
All allowable uses. That's correct. All possible scenarios.
Okay.
And this is currently zoned RP?
It is, yes, sir.
Do you know how long it's been zoned RP?
I would say at least since 2016. Absolutely longer than that, I'm sure of. I think at one point, though, it was actually zoned RA. And Travis, I'm not sure how well you can hear me or how much you can speak on this. But I do believe at one point in the property, whether it was 10 or 1 or 2 decades ago, it was actually zoned agriculturally. So, also add that the property is currently designated as a bona fide farm with the county.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Just to add, prior to the UDO's adoption in 2010, it was zoned R20, which is essentially what became RP when the UDO was adopted.
Makes sense.
Do we have any more questions for staff? Would the applicant like to come forward? Okay. Well, if we have any questions we'd like to ask.
Sure.
Do we have any questions?
State your name, please, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Vince Burgess.
And he's the only sign up, Mr. Chairman. So
Okay.
that's what I wanted to confirm. I thought that was good, but.
Okay. Do we have any questions? You farm the land currently?
Well,
Is
it's,
that-
right now it's in forest ownership, but we want to do agriculture. Basically, again, not to get on the soapbox, but we're trying to preserve the rural nature of it. And we have an adjacent property that we were in contract to purchase. We'd like to connect them together and keep them in rural agricultural standard and hopefully in perpetuity. Because there's no plans for us to ever put residential there. And, you know, again, I think probably consistent with the use that it's always been. RA is probably more consistent with that. But I think in trying to think forward, you know, they thought that possibly it would be subdivision or something, but it's just not our intent and not our hope in perpetuity.
I understand. Do we have any questions? Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Yes, please come forward to the podium and state your name and address.
And we only have 5 more sign-ups for the other 2 matters combined, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman. So,
My name is Wanda Wilson. I live at 11885 Ashton Road, Burgaw, North Carolina.
Okay.
And I'm right next to the property that they're clearing and developing. Exactly what is he saying that they're gonna do with the property? I didn't quite understand all the terms he was using.
Well, ma'am, he gave an indication of what he's gonna do, but what we have to do by state law is address what could be done on the property if we rezone it, because it's a general use rezoning. But in general, it is going, if this rezoning is approved by this board and then the Board of Commissioners, it would have the potential for less dense residential construction and more, again, rural agricultural is, we hope, what the name says. It tends towards more rural areas, and even though I have no doubt of his good faith in what he says it's going to do, somebody else could come by it tomorrow. So we have to treat it as if any of the uses in rural agriculture could proceed, and so that's what the board is.
Okay, what are you just saying about agriculture? I don't understand. That's what I'm saying. I don't understand what you.
Ma'am, the property is currently zoned residential performance, which is typically a zoning that most developers would prefer because it allows them to build neighborhoods. That's what it is now. What the applicant's asking for is to change that zoning to rural agriculture, which would, if he wanted to develop it for a neighborhood, would actually be a disadvantage because he could do less units. It'd be a smaller community. But what his intention, he said, was something different. But what we have to look at is what are the potential uses that would be allowed if we allow this. Right now, residential performance has certain uses. Residential, rural agriculture has different uses. And most of those would allow some different, I guess, agricultural, commercial uses on that property.
All right, because like right now, they're clearing it, and every time I walk out my door, it's smoke. For the last 2 weeks, it's just been smoke.
Okay.
So that's when I was asking, what was the residential? Because there had always been trees there. Because Atlantic Seaboard, the tree company, for the last 60 years, I know, there's been nothing but trees, because I lived there for 61 years. So that's when I was trying to find out exactly what was going, because I didn't understand. I'm sorry, I didn't sign up, but I just
No, we understand. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Pardon?
Are there any signs?
No.
Do we have any discussion?
Please state your name and your address, sir.
Maurice Worrell, 12490 Ashton Road. If it's moved to rural agriculture, does that mean they would be allowed to put chicken houses, hog houses, turkey houses, things of that nature on there?
Well, sir, let me address that. Under North Carolina law, bona fide farm operations are totally exempt from zoning in the county. So they can do that in any zoning district they want to in Pender County. They are exempt if it is a bona fide farm.
Even if it was high density, for what it's currently is zoned as?
It's a residential zone at this point, but they could again, under North Carolina law, the zoning ordinance does not affect agriculture.
It's currently a bona fide farm already.
Right, and so they could already do those things if that's what they wanted to do.
No matter what it's
right.
determined as.
Correct.
Right. Regardless of the property's zoning, the bona fide farm designation would exempt them from zoning regulations.
Well, I guess I'm a little curious too, is that I understand somebody said, well, I guess it's always been the farming, but I've only been there 73 years, and I've never seen a farm there. It's always been woods land. Well, tree farm, yeah. So I'm wondering how they got a designation as a farm.
Well, tree farming is farming.
Well,
It is.
talk to the IRS about that.
No, it is. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm just telling you what the law is. That's it is deemed, and timberlands are given the same deferral that farmlands are, for instance, for tax valuation purposes.
Well, that's not true. You gotta have 20 acres of forestry to qualify, 10 acres for farmland for cultivation.
Okay, I'm not,
And IRS,
no, I don't think that's what we're dealing with, sir, so,
well, that's the concern I've got though, you know, is whether or not, you know, we're opening up the can of worms to have to live next to, you know, hog farm, chicken house, things of that nature. And there's a whole bunch of things that would be concerning if that is the case.
Am I correct, Trey, what you're saying is regardless if we rezone it, if it's a bona fide farm, those uses are still allowed today? If we deny the rezoning or
Right.
not, they still can do that? That has nothing to, we have no ability or jurisdiction over that type of conversation. That's something, I guess the state has control of that. And that's already allowed.
Appreciate you listening.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve based upon the Pender 2.0 Comprehensive Land Use Plan, 5.1 Land Use Plan Consistency, 5.1 Agricultural Business, 5.1 Rural Land Use Patterns, 5.1 Rural Non-Residential Uses, and believe it to be consistent with the rural agricultural future land use classification as in the Pender 2.0 Comprehensive Land Use Plan.
I will second that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve. Let's take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion has been approved.
can we tell them when that'll be heard before the commissioners?
Certainly.
Is it gonna be July 11th? For anyone that is interested in this matter, the planning board has made a recommendation. It will now go to the Board of Commissioners for final action, which will be on July the 11th. And the hearing on that will start at 7 p.m. The meeting starts at 4, but the public hearings for rezoning start at 7, so I wouldn't want you to sit there. You're welcome, but I wouldn't want anybody sitting around for 3 hours, you know, on that meeting. So you can come at 7 if you wish. And there will be sign-up sheets. Please use them next time. And the Board of Commissioners will hear from everyone and decide what to do, because they take final action on the rezoning or the zoning text amendment type of thing. And again, that'll be at the Commissioners meeting room in the main county complex, 805 South Walker Street.
And also, those within 500 feet of the property will be mailed notice of that meeting as well. So you will receive mailed notice if you are within 500 feet. If you receive mailed notice for this meeting, you will receive it again, and a new sign will be posted.
Okay. Moving right along, next item on the agenda is 8.4.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You ready?
Yes.
All right. I appreciate it. My name is Daniel Adams. I'm the county's floodplain administrator. It's been a while since I've presented to this board, so thank you for giving me the opportunity. What you have before you this evening is a general use rezoning request. The applicant is Michael Afifi, and he's representing Share the Table, which is a local nonprofit. They are here this evening. They're requesting a zoning map amendment to rezone one parcel totaling roughly 0.6 of an acre from the RP Residential Performance Zoning District to the GB General Business Zoning District. As you can see on the map here, The subject property is outlined in blue. It's a little bit challenging to see, but it's a pie-shaped lot, and to the west and to the north, property is zoned GB, general business. To the south and to the east, it's zoned RP, residential performance. The lot's about 300 feet east of the intersection of US Highway 17 and Perkins Drive. Again, this aerial makes it a little bit challenging to see specifically what the uses are, but to the west is vacant property zoned GB, and it's important to note that the owner, Share the Table, owns that parcel at the intersection of US Highway 17 and Perkins Drive, adjacent to the subject property. To the north, immediately to the north, there's an existing non-conforming residential structure. So the parcel right at the tip of the triangle, immediately north, there's an existing non-conforming residential structure. To the east and to the south, on the other side of Perkins Drive, there are residential structures. Again, because this is a general use rezoning, there is no site plan that was submitted as part of the application. So if it were to be approved, there are potential for 83 uses to be allowed by right and roughly 18 uses with a special use permit in the GB zoning district. The traffic data, the most recent data that we could find was from 2016 for the 100 block of Perkins Drive, and there was no capacity data available. So the volume is from 2016, again 6 years old, 260 cars per day. That's the average annual daily traffic count. We're not able to give a volume to capacity ratio because capacity was not available. It should be noted, though, that, again, as this is not there was no site plan submitted as part of this general use rezoning, we're not aware of any traffic impacts, or we're not able to discuss any traffic impacts at this time, although a traffic impact analysis could be required as development proposals are submitted to staff. As you can see on the Pender County, Pender 2.0 comprehensive land use plan, the future land use map, the subject property is located within the medium density residential future land use classification. This future land use category is established in areas that are typically in close proximity to supporting services in a mixture of development types with appropriate uses, including single family dwellings, duplexes, community recreation and open space uses, and neighborhood scale institution facilities such as religious and civic organizations. Although the request is inconsistent with the future land use map, it was found to be consistent with two policies in the Pender 2.0 comprehensive land use plan. Those policies are 5.1E and 5.1K. Additionally, the size of the parcel and its proximity to commercially zoned property minimize the inconsistency with the future land use map. And the adjacent parcel is designated as neighborhood mixed use on the future land use map, which is that parcel that's also owned by the Share the Table. And that allows for transitional uses between commercial and lower density residential neighborhoods and further minimizes the inconsistency with the future land use map. So therefore, staff is recommending approval of this rezoning request. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. The applicant is here as well, and we'll be happy to field any questions from the board.
My apologies, I was looking at the map. The two properties west of the subject property are owned both by the same gentleman?
Just the one at the intersection of 17 and Perkins Drive.
Just the corner one, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, is this Perkins Drive, is it a paved road, or is it?
Yes, sir, it's paved.
Okay. Now, this is 6/10 of an acre, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that pie-shaped lot, 6/10 of an acre.
So in PD development, how many houses could be built on that piece of property?
In RP, what it's currently
I'm sorry.
zoned?
It's RP?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
15,000 square foot minimum lot size, so roughly 2. I mean, it'd be close. We have to probably get a survey to get specific square footage. So it's roughly
maybe 2.
Right.
Okay.
One, maybe 2.
The uses are changing. Obviously, we're going from residential to commercial. What is the buffer there? There's obviously a neighborhood there, community there. There's a house right there.
Right.
So we rezone this and potentially, it happens, and someone may want to do something. we have to consider the uses of that, that the ordinance allows. What is the buffer requirement for a general business that would be buffering residential performance?
So the buffer requirements for non-street boundaries and adjacent residential districts would be buffer C. So there's a few different options for a buffer C. I'll just read from the list here. What buffer C is designed to achieve. It's designed to provide a high-density screen primarily along non-street boundary lines to provide buffer and separation between different categories of uses, such as commercial adjacent to residential uses or other non-residential uses adjacent to high-density single-family uses. So an example could be a 10-foot wide strip with a 6-foot high wood stockade, basket weave, or other solid wood fence, and 2 canopy trees and a grass cover of at least 98% coverage. And that's per 100 linear feet.
What's the height limitation for general business?
Let's see, 40 feet.
What's the height in RP?
35.
Do we have any more questions for staff? Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
The applicant would like to come forward.
That's who signed up.
Hello, please state your name.
Dawn Ellis.
And I'm Michelle Bennett.
Does staff have any questions?
What is it that Share the Table does?
We're a food ministry.
Okay.
We have a food pantry and a free community meal and a school backpack program, as well as a household ministry. This pie-shaped lot is just planning to be our stormwater drainage.
I see. Okay. The stormwater drainage also has to require the buffer as well. I think my question is, if it's rezoned, there's a home there, an individual, so, is that required to have that?
The buffer requirement would be the same.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I don't have any questions for that one.
Have any questions either? Do we have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a couple of sign-ups, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent.
I think it's Kathleen, and the address is 681 Landing. Would you please state your name, ma'am?
Kathleen Nixon.
I'm sorry, what's your last name?
Nixon.
And your address, please?
681 Landing Drive. I'm totally confused, but I'm gonna go for it. I've been gone away from the area since I was in my early 20s. I came back in 2018. I have had that property on Perkins Drive all that long time. And the powers that be told me I couldn't stay on it right now. I rent a lot, 681 Landing, from a very nice lady. I have 12 grandchildren. I wanted to come home, but like I said, they did not pass my land. So everybody gets a chance to stay on Perkins Drive but me. They built a school, now Share the Table, which I love them, and they've been a very good help to me since I've been here. I just didn't really understand what was going on, but I just keep standing on the wayside waiting to move on my property. So really, I'm for whatever they're doing, but I'm for myself first. I don't know what to do. I want to get on my land, and I want my grandchildren to be able to come and visit with me. So I know I'm off of the subject matter, but please, somebody help me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert Kirkland.
Hello, my name is Robert Kirkland, 100 Perkins Drive, Hampstead, North Carolina. I just heard the gentleman say a few minutes ago there wasn't a traffic study on Perkins Drive. Of course, you know that we have that new school there, and you can't get out from your house in the morning from about 7:15 to 8 o'clock, and in the evening from about 2:15 to 3 o'clock. You can't get out because so much traffic on the road. And of course, when they built the school, they say Perkins Drive wouldn't be used for the buses, but buses up and down there every day. And I had understood that this piece of property, that pie-shaped piece of property that was being purchased was going to be used as a commercial adjacent. But I think you just said residential, correct?
The proposal is to transition it from residential to general business or commercial.
The problem I have is the exit. Is the exit going to exit on Perkins Drive or on 17?
There's no site plan associated with it, so we won't know until the site plan is
Well, perhaps a traffic study do need to be made about where the exit is going to be. I'm not against them having the share the table. I think it's a good business, but I am against so much traffic, and the speed limit is still 45 miles an hour on that drive, which should be 35 as much traffic is on it. And I live right there adjacent to this property. And that's my concern is whenever this zone is looked at, look at where that's just going to be, as Perkins Drive or 17. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Those are all the sign-offs, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Please come forward.
My name is Triana Kirkland, 100 Perkins Drive. And I'm not clear on what you're saying. You're having it rezoned as commercial. So is share the table commercial?
Yes.
I'm just getting clarity. I don't understand what's going on.
So the property is currently zoned for residential uses, for
Right.
example, houses to be put there.
Right.
Share the Table is a nonprofit.
Right.
So what the board can consider is not necessarily what a specific use would be, but I think their idea would be to put a structure there that they can operate out of,
Okay.
which would be considered a commercial use.
Oh, okay. So it's not going to be, it's going to be rezoned
To allow for that.
to allow for this, which is commercial,
Right.
but it's a 501(c)(3).
Yes.
Okay. So it's not going to be rezoned for residential. I mean, for commercial, it's going to stay zoned for residential. Is that what you're saying?
Other way around. So it's currently residential.
Okay.
The request is to transition it to commercial.
Commercial,
Mhm.
okay. All right. So,
There's a difference between commercial in practice and commercial as far as zoning is concerned. So commercial, in this case, is something not residential.
Right,
Think of it like
right.
that.
okay. So what I need to know is, in the future, if Share the Table decides to sell that property, someone can come there and build whatever they want to build, commercial.
There's 83 potential uses that they could develop with by right, without having to come before the commissioners.
So if Sheriff Table decide next week, they own that property, if they decide in a month that they don't wanna, rebuild, wanna build there from where they are now, they could, sell it to a commercial developer, and he could put whatever he wants there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Only what is allowed by the ordinance, but yes,
Only about what's allowed by the.
the 83 uses could be done.
83
there.
uses, ma'am.
So that we are, that's what we are considering, is that the fact that you cannot just think that these ladies here are gonna own it forever, that once it's rezoned, it's rezoned.
Right.
Right, and so that's something we have to take into consideration to make sure that it's consistent with this area.
Right.
So we'll discuss this as
Okay.
well. So.
Let me ask you also, this young lady here that just came up and said something about she wants to reclaim her property. I don't understand what she's asking you all.
That's not a matter that this board is going to discuss. That's something that's a private conversation.
Oh, okay, thank you. The reason I ask that is because we own most of the property around that high-shaped piece. So that's why I'm wondering why she was asking that.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any questions for staff? I mean, these are legitimate concerns.
If you have any questions for us, please fire them away.
She's working on it.
I think we're trying to figure out the uses more since, I know we know the majority of them. We're looking to see if there's anything in there that may be sensitive.
Is there any way we can word it where it has to be approved? Nope.
No.
Not with this. There is a conditional rezoning, but I don't know if that was discussed with the applicant or not.
I think, did we discuss a conditional rezoning route to the applicant?
Travis, I think you had spoke with this applicant originally, is that right?
Travis, can you hear us?
Not really.
Okay. Essentially, the board's going through the uses that would be permitted by right, should the rezoning request be approved, to general business.
Yeah.
Because it's a general use rezoning application, it's not tied to a site-specific plan.
Correct.
I think the question was maybe not what a conditional rezoning route would look like, but were there conversations with the applicant about pursuing a conditional rezoning?
Yeah, there were, to my knowledge, there were brief conversations. I mean, this was probably 6 months ago at least, if not more. And then we heard again from not necessarily the applicant, I believe Mr. Afifi. And when we heard from him, the next agenda deadline was later that week. And so the general use rezoning is, a much simpler process from the standpoint of the applicant. Obviously, as the board knows, the conditional rezoning comes with a site plan. That's to a depending upon the case, a rather significant level of detail. Also has that public input meeting requirement, but it also hems you in on what uses you can do, and whereas the general use rezoning doesn't. And so, to answer the question, yes, but it always seemed like in this particular case, the general use rezoning was the simpler and the simpler route for the applicant in this case.
So we have general business all along 17 there. There's a pie-shaped half-acre lot that we're talking about that's directly adjacent to his already existing general business where these uses are already allowed to be done. What we're asking for, the applicant says is stormwater, okay. You're not gonna put your stormwater on 17, that's your store frontage, your value to have store frontage. You could have some curb cuts though off Perkins, you know, I think that'd be safer, but that's something later where traffic's gonna come in and out to the property. But we already have these uses, the potential uses can be done currently on 17. So what we're saying is we're just going to add this parcel to be contiguous with that general business. So I am comfortable with that because those uses are already allowed. You have an property owner who's already just basically trying to combine these pieces. Yes, you have to think about what's being done in the future, but again, these uses are currently allowed along 17. So I'm in favor of this if the board is with consensus, but if we need to talk further about it, then I'm okay with that as well.
I agree.
Is that a motion? I would like to make a motion to approve and reference the wording in the packet.
I second that motion. It's policy 5.1.E and policy 5.1.K.
Right. The proposed rezoning is consistent with the medium-density residential future land use classification in the Pender 2.0 comprehensive land use plan. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, Dana.
The motion has been approved. Moving right along. Zoning, okay. My glasses now. Public hearing, 8.5.
Moving along, our final application this evening is yet another general use rezoning request. Robert Batson, applicant and owner, is requesting approval of a zoning map amendment to rezone one tract totaling approximately 41 acres of land from the GB General Business Zoning District to the IT Industrial Transitional Zoning District. Shown on the screen is a zoning map of the area. Just north of the property, we have Windwater and Topsail Greens, our first application this evening. And just to the south, you do have Hampstead Kiwanis Park, as well as some more PD zoning as you get further away from the park. And as you get closer to 17, you do have some industrial transitional zoning, however, not contiguous with the subject property. Again, the aerial should perhaps be zoomed in a tad bit more. The subject property is primarily vacant. There are a few metal buildings located on the subject property now. And as you can see again, I reiterate, Hampstead Park is directly across Sloop Point Loop Road from this property. And again, we have a table outlining the 90 uses permitted by right in the industrial transitional land use category, as well as your dimensional requirements to the right. The setbacks are, of course, a bit lengthier in this zoning district, as it primarily permits, well, it's in the name, industrial, heavier industrial uses, land uses. Okay, and again, we have our traffic data derived from the Department of Transportation. The scope here was between US 17 and Country Club Drive, where the volume to capacity data was nearly 50%, indicating that there is still capacity to accommodate an increase in traffic. So Pender 2.0 classifies the subject property as neighborhood mixed use. And the neighborhood mixed use classification allows for a transition between more intense commercial, office, and residential development to lower density residential neighborhoods. And appropriate land uses include neighborhood scale retail, restaurant, and office establishments, religious and educational institutions, and higher density single-family residences. So while the current zoning map designation of GB general business for the property is consistent with the Pender 2.0 comprehensive land use plan, a more intense commercial designation in the form of IT industrial transitional would be inconsistent with the goals of Pender 2.0 and would not be in character with the surrounding area, as the surrounding area is designated for low density residential development along with recreational uses. And therefore, planning staff respectfully recommends denial of the zoning map amendment application as detailed in this presentation and within the board's packets. And again, staff is available to answer any questions that the board may have of us. Mr. Batson is with us this evening as well and is able to come up and answer some questions the board may have of him. Any questions for staff? Would you like to hear from Mr. Batson? We can always, if you have questions for me along the way, that's absolutely fine.
Go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Batson, would you step in front of the microphone for us, please?
Please state your name, sir, and
My name is Robert Talmadge Batson, 4 feet on 679 Sloop Point Loop Road. And what I inherited this farm from my mom and daddy, and I'm trying to keep it in my name. There's certain things that I can't do that was doing. Daddy was farming it, and I'm losing things there and everything. But I'm just trying to get something in there to pay for the land, pay the taxes. That's what I'm trying to do. And they're a little bit over 6,000. They're gonna go up. They're gonna go up this year because the land changing what it was. And I just permit just to put that storage in, well, to pass that old proposal. The farmland, woodland, what it was. About half and half, 2020. And we would be farming it right now if there was any, there's no money in farming right now. Not too small farm anyway. And so I can't keep it under that cause you gotta have 10 acres and you gotta produce X amount and everything. If you don't, you knock it all off. And I just can't do it.
I don't have any questions for the applicant.
do we have any questions for the applicant?
The one sign up, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, one
although
sign
I'm
up.
not sure to sign up on the first matter as well. Stephen Wedgeworth?
Thank you, Mr. Batten. We'll call you back up if we have any further questions. Just have a seat. We'll let you.
Thank you once again for the opportunity to speak on this subject. I appreciate the recommendation to deny this request. I'm sorry, my name's Steve Wedgeworth. I live at 138 Pebble Beach Drive, and my property backs up to the north boundary of this plat. There is a drainage ditch, at least, excuse me, on the northeast boundary. So I saw on one of the previous slides that potentially hazardous materials and whatnot would be permitted with this industrial transition zoning request. So that wasn't brought up. I just wanted to bring it up. And once again, I respectfully request this committee, anything that can be done through this board or any other state agencies to promote information for citizens of the community would be greatly appreciated by all. Thank you.
Thank you. questions for staff?
Yeah, I don't know, not a staff at the moment.
Any discussion? What's your thoughts?
I mean, this is an area, you know, community comes to Kiwanis Park. I mean, heck, I was out there today hitting baseballs with the kids. So, I mean, it is backing up to that residential neighborhood. I think just there's so many potential uses being allowed is a real concern. I think if you did have a conditional reuse zoning where we want to do this specific thing, and this is what we're going to do, and this is, so everyone knows what we're doing, and that use was something that was, okay, this is something that would fit here, I think I'd be a lot more comfortable. But currently, those industrial uses, while I do think this community in Pender County in general needs more industrial sites and more business here, other than residential uses, I'm not sure this is the right location. Although, you know, if there was an specific industrial use that's being proposed, we could all think about, that'd be different. But I mean, you can have all different types of machine shops, and well, that, you know, we have to think about all that, and that's a lot. I think at this moment for me to say, yeah, let's move forward in this. You know, so I don't think I could say today I'd be in favor of this, but that's kind of my initial thoughts on it.
I agree. I don't think it's proper for the area, this zoning. You've got a park, you've got residences. It seems out of place.
You know, there are some uses in there. You know, when you turn off of 17 or Sleep Point, there's some shops and businesses in there that, you know, I think an air conditioning company and so forth. I'm not sure what uses are fall under general business. But, so if someone was thinking about this further, I'd have to table it, to think about it further, to understand it more. But if you're gonna push me tonight, it would be a no.
I understand, and I understand your situation too. You know, it's family land, and you want to hold on to it. But right, I understand. It's the same where I stay, and you know, but like we're saying, that this rezoning is really broad. Maybe if there was something specific, you know, like a conditional rezoning that you know, that way if you had something specific in mind and you could do a conditional rezoning, that maybe we could allow it, but you got to understand and it's unfortunate. Yeah. Yeah, come forward, please.
Y'all not having enough long meetings at the Board of Education?
My name is Brad George. I live at 102 Doral Drive. I live on part of the old homestead that Mr. Batson is talking about. He's my wife's uncle.
Okay.
I just want to try to help him clarify some things. General business, I noticed, doesn't allow a special use permit as an option. Is that correct? If I read that right on the table? For general business. For like, he's wanted to put a boat and RV storage unit, storage facility on there.
Right. And so, correct. The only zoning district where outdoor boat storage is permitted is in general business, which it is currently zoned as. However, it would require a special use permit from the Board of County Commissioners. Right. So there's still another board approval needed. And again, with this rezoning, outdoor storage is permitted by right within IT, industrial transitional. And with a rezoning application, general use, we're not tied to a site-specific plan. So really, we're not looking at outdoor boat storage here. We're looking at the 90 permitted
That's
uses.
what I'm trying to get maybe across to Robert.
Sure.
That with a special use permit, he could apply for that designation as a boat storage in the general business. And it would be restricted to that facility, to that business there.
Right. And he'd have to show the design and the buffers and all that.
Right. So that would be an option to be able to do that. Right now it's planned development, isn't it?
It's currently general
General business. Okay. So, but, and the new land use plan is for neighborhood mixed use. So it'll be residential, most likely.
Not, the neighborhood mixed use does permit residential land uses, not necessarily.
Right, so instead of having 20 boats in a storage unit coming in and out, we're gonna have, on 41 acres in Pender County, you can put 6,000 houses. I mean, that's the way it seems to work. Because I have 4 acres behind my house, that only 3 of it's good acres, and they're putting 8 homes on it. So with 41 acres, a bunch of houses, more than he could with 20 boats in a boat storage or 20 RVs in an RV storage. There'll be a lot more traffic with if it ever gets past the updated UDO.
I think the issue at this point is that this application is a general use rezoning.
Right.
So the board
Right,
has to
I
consider
understand that. Yes, I understand that. I'm just trying to help him and hopefully help them help him, tell him that he can, there's another route to do what he wants to do that would be restrictive enough that I think the community would welcome what he wants to do more than they want 300 houses there.
Still a board hearing similar to this one with a different board. This application, regardless of its recommendation.
Right, it's still got to go before the commissioners. So that's all I had to say. I just wanted to try to help Robert understand that there's other options. Instead of changing the whole 41 acres to industrial transit, or whatever it's called, to take what he really needs to use and want to develop into the boat storage facility or outdoor facility.
We won't talk about it too much tonight and get off subject, but there's plenty, subdividing options as well that I'm happy to discuss with
Right.
you or whoever. If you'd like to stop by our office or call us, happy to discuss all possible scenarios. I believe we were speaking with Fred Jones, helped you out with the application. He's a surveyor of the county. I think initially had some conversation with Fred Jones, but it was our understanding this was going to be a general use rezoning.
I understand.
Simply transferring.
And I'm not sure if Robert understands, once it goes to that IT, he's gonna be taxed at that rate. And if he's only gonna use 10 acres for his boat storage place, his lot rent for the boat storage is gonna be a lot to pay the taxes on.
Exactly why I mentioned subdividing
Okay.
opportunities. So,
All right,
I would suggest we have a follow-up meeting.
okay.
Yeah, we definitely need more industrial zoning in our
Yes.
county. I'm not sure right here is the best place, because we need to get
Right.
tax base up other than
I
on the
live
residents.
right there at the corner of Country
Yeah.
Club, and I'm not Country Club at Doral and Slough Point Loop, so
Mhm.
I know the traffic study, I don't know where that traffic study came from, but it's way off base. But thank you.
So, so the question is too, all right, I think if we make action tonight, you're gonna decline it. So is there a penalty to that, to the applicant, if he wants to do something different or think about it, to withdraw the application, or do we want to just decline it today?
So not if the applicant were to submit an entirely different application.
Okay, I just wanna make sure he's not penalized.
I.e. a special use permit application to allow for a specific land use within the current zoning
Okay.
designation.
There would be no waiting period for that.
There would be no waiting period. That's
Okay,
correct.
I just wanna make sure.
Could apply tomorrow.
I think Mr. George, spoke very clearly exactly what some of the different options for the applicant. I just want to make sure we don't penalize him
No.
trying to accomplish his goal.
No, sir.
Okay.
There would not be any penalty from acting on the application tonight. If the applicant were to submit a separate development application tomorrow,
Okay.
could do so.
So what should we do? Should we table this or should we offer him the option to?
I think we just decline it. And let that's our wishes.
No, I agree.
There's just too many uses.
It's too broad.
I mean, I agree as well.
Okay.
There's a better route for him.
Yeah.
So I make the motion to deny based on policies 5.1D, E, H, and N as laid out in the Pender 2.0 Comprehensive Land Use Plan.
I'll second that motion. All right. All in favor of denying?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. All righty. Next on the agenda. The next meeting will be July 6th, 2022. That'll be on a Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. in the Pender County Administration Building. Do we have anything else we would like to discuss this evening?
Do we?
Travis is still there. Still hang with
Yep,
us.
I'm here. I don't have anything unless the board has any questions for staff.
No?
Well, I just, what Davey and I was talking about, and with Greg, this gentleman can come back and it'll be penalized, to do a special use permit, is that correct?
To the county commissioners if he pursues that.
Yeah.
That doesn't come to us. The conditional rezoning will come to us.
Okay, excellent.
And when were you gonna
Right.
talk about the bond or the wording
The other
changes
thing is, maybe we do that,
before?
yeah, offline to make sure it goes smoothly. Not offline, it's all public record, but, through email or phone calls to clarify that, and then, present the consensus of that text amendment next time around. I'm not sure if Travis can hear us.
All right. I'm entertaining a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?